because he is here to talk about the very important elected office that he currently holds, frankly, for another year and a half practically. So you really need to hear from him and enjoy the opportunity to get to hear from him in a venue like this. So thank you.
No, this is important advertisement. For those who are wondering, we do now have merch. If you go to Phil for Colorado store, you can get your t-shirts, your buttons, bumper stickers, what have you. I want to start, though, talking about the work I'm currently doing. And for those who said, gosh, Phil, why can't you keep serving as our Attorney General? The answer is, unlike some people in Washington, I believe in the rule of law. And Colorado's Constitution has 2 terms. I will be giving the people the chance to keep me in another office, which I'll get to in a minute. But I am concerned in a way I never thought I would be about the rule of law and about our democratic republic. We are being tested as a nation. We're being tested as people. How can we meet this moment? And how can we show up in this moment? And there's actually a debate within the Democratic Party. There are people who will say, if we vote for these cabinet picks and say nice things about them and try not to criticize them, maybe they'll throw us some crumbs. To which I say, bullshit. Yeah! When your values and your principles, ranging from how we treat immigrants, to whether we act to advance diversity, equity, inclusion, to whether we take this climate crisis seriously, when that's all on the line, you stand on the ground you believe in and you fight for what matters. I brought 35 lawsuits against this administration. We are winning again and again and again. A couple weeks ago, we won our lawsuit defending AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps is a bipartisan supported program that sends $8 to $10 million to Colorado so volunteers can serve. It's not just making a difference in communities across our state. It's transformative. I want to tell you about a volunteer I met in the San Luis Valley. The volunteer said AmeriCorps was giving the communities help they desperately need. This volunteer was working in Creed, Colorado. Any here been to Creed, Colorado? A few people. Really small community. This volunteer is working in the schools 4 days a week. 5th day, she's doing programming. After school, she does programming, and she's the backup lunch lady. This volunteer is making a big impact, but what's even more amazing is the impact the program is making on the volunteer. On the volunteer's sense of self and future. I shouldn't have to be fighting to win that case, but we did. And so it goes with so many other cases. I'm going to give you a quick update on the 36 case I promised to bring because it's instructive of the moment we're in. It involves Colorado's commitment to mail-in voting, which is well established, and unfortunately the president didn't get the memo that the Constitution says the states, very good, decide the time, place, and manner of elections. This president, a lawless bully, said, I'm going to punish Colorado for exercising its constitutional responsibility. And I'm going to take Space Command from Colorado and move it to Alabama. That's not how our system works. The president can't punish us for exercising a constitutional right. And I'll be seeing him in court for the 36th time.
All right.
I'm going to get to questions in a few minutes, but let me pick up the thread about why am I running to serve as Colorado's next governor. And the first is what I just said. As we think about who's the right choice to be our next governor, one of the fundamental qualifications is who do you trust to protect you? Who do you trust who's going to stand and fight for the principles we needed? Because we can't accommodate this lawless bully. We can't be like, and here you get to fill in whatever entity has caved of late. We're not going to cave. We're going to stand our ground. And we in Colorado are going to show what the values of our nation is. And we're going to live those values. And as your governor, I'm going to represent the type of leadership we had when Ralph Carr was governor. He was at another challenging time when the federal government said, we want you to put Japanese Americans in internment camps. Ralph Carr said, no, not while I'm governor. Because he's committed to principle and leading with courage. Moral courage is critical this time, but so is conviction that we can do hard things and that we can get shit done. Because we've got a lot of work to do right now. And I believe we can do it. Let me take you back to one thing I did that's instructive. When King Soopers and Safeway were going to merge, a lot of people said, can we do anything about this? These are billion-dollar companies. Who can fight for us? And I said, watch. I did 19 town halls across the state, listened to people all across Colorado, consumers, workers, and farmers. One of the most amazing things was, when workers showed up, they were talking about the consumers they were worried about. When consumers showed up, they were talking about the workers they were worried about. And we went to court to help stop that merger. We can do hard things in Colorado. And we need to build thriving communities because we're facing real challenges. Can people afford to buy a home? No. Can people get a job that pays them enough to have a living wage? Can people know that they're safe in their communities, including from wildfires? And are people okay in terms of their mental health, particularly young people? We've got lots of work to take on, and it's going to take all of us working together, leaning in to make sure that our kids are going to want to be in Colorado because they're seeing a state that they want to live in. And right now, that very much lies in the balance. Quickly, in terms of my ability to do this job, as opposed to someone else who's out there, I've been working all throughout state government over the last 8 years, inside and out from the bottom up. There's a reason why more current and former elected officials have endorsed me than my opponent in this race. There's a reason why we have more donors from Colorado in this race than my opponent does. It's because of the type of work I've done, for example, on the opioid crisis, where I really showed up in communities and listened and said, tell me about what this crisis is doing. As Attorney General, I got to work and brought $900 million back to Colorado. That was the easy part. Because in a lot of states right now, they're fighting amongst themselves how to invest these opioid settlement funds. But not in Colorado. Any of you watch Jon Stewart? Mm-hmm. How about John Oliver?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So John Oliver did this whole sketch on the opioid settlement funds. Maybe someone remembers it. Went through how all these states where you couldn't figure out how the money was being spent. But then he said at the end, 2 states set the gold standard. Colorado and North Carolina. You know why North Carolina's on that list? Because their former Attorney General, now Governor, see the pattern, Josh Stein, who's now, by the way, endorsed me to be Colorado's next governor. Josh called me up and said, how are you doing in Colorado? And I told him the story, that I sat down with local government leaders and said, what do you need? How do we make progress on this crisis? And they said, I'll tell you what we need. We need to get the money quickly without a lot of BS bureaucracy. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. 90% of the money goes to the local and the regional level. The money goes right to them, but then they have to disclose how all the money's spent, and we look after the fact to make sure it's spent well. And then we meet once a year and learn from one another at this annual conference coming up in October. And last year, we got some very compelling news in 2024. Overdose deaths by opioids went down by 30%. I want to keep serving Colorado in elected public service. I want to be your next governor because I love Colorado, because I believe in what the values of America are, the values of the Democratic Party. And I believe I will lead with the courage, the conviction, and the commitment to build the community we need. It's an honor to be able to stand for public office, to serve. I would welcome you to ask questions about this. Yes.
Thank you for coming and sharing your time with us. I've always considered myself like a constitutionalist, a firm believer in strengthening democratic institutions. So much so at a younger age, I signed on the dotted line to join the Army and knew that someday I may have to spill blood to defend the Constitution. All these cases, 36 that you're saying that have obviously cost taxpayer dollars, and I would encourage you to keep spending those taxpayer dollars to defend democracy so that less and less American young people will be spilling blood to defend democracy. And with that, you know, it's ironic, like I'll be 53 in a couple of weeks, and my whole life I've heard Republicans talk about states' rights. You know, like that's been the mantra that they've been reading about all their stuff for as long as I can remember. And the irony is now that they have national power.
National stage in somewhat of a power vacuum when people aren't really happy with the national Democratic leadership. How do you see yourself as a governor in that? Do you see yourself stepping to the national stage to represent Colorado, focusing on our state? What is your style of leadership on the national stage?
Really, an important question. My first job is to protect Colorado. I believe that what will happen and what is happening is that the national stage at whatever points will come to you. So for example, take this Space Command issue. I will be, as governor, like I am as Attorney General, very clear. The president doesn't get to push Colorado around and threaten us around our voting system. On issues around climate, I will be very clear that we recognize climate change is happening. We don't have the luxury of waiting. And what I'm very keen to do, this is sort of a little bit interesting in between in your question, is work with other governors in collaboration and alliances to pick up some of the leadership that should be at the federal level, but isn't there. And there's so many issues, sadly. Climate's one, dealing with wildfires is another. How we make sure that we're giving people good public health advice on vaccines is yet another, and down the list. So I do believe the national leadership will invariably come somewhat to me. I believe I will be able to work with other governors to fill the vacuum, and I believe that our nominee in 2028 should be a governor who's shown the ability to lead with courage, clarity, and to get shit done.
Any particular governor?
So I'm focused on my race in 2026, then we'll get to 2028.
You have a microphone down there with Pat.
Thank you.
So a very disturbing article in the Colorado Sun. When she turns it off. Thank you. A disturbing article in the Colorado Sun about the budget for 2026 and how they have to come up with $800 million after they've already cut $4 billion. And it comes down to Tabor. And so I'm just curious what your solution is going to be to that.
Yeah. Colorado has a fiscal straitjacket. It's called the Taxpayer Bill of Rights of Tabor. We have to fix it. Let me tell you what my view on this is. When you talk to Coloradans, and surveys show this, and you say, what do you think of Taxpayer Bill of Rights? People often say, I like that I get to vote whether my taxes go up. I can live with that. We can leave that alone, accept that as settled, and then deal with two other issues. The inability to have a progressive income tax in Colorado is a problem. And most of all, and this gets to your question, this hard cap that restricts how we manage our revenues is suffocating us. The way it works is population growth and inflation growth is the only increase you're allowed in the state budget, period. No matter what other things are going on, like the federal government cutting Medicaid by huge amounts. We need to give ourselves more flexibility, and we've got to change the hard cap to do that. We did it once, mirror referendum C, but it was a temporary thing, which is now expired. And we've never had our population growth quite this low. We're 2022, 23, 2022 to 2023, we only grew by 6,000 people. From 2013 to 2020, we grew by 42,000 people. So we are in a very difficult moment. And the hard question, I actually think, is not whether you believe Tabor needs to be changed, but how are you going to change it? Because we've tried twice in the last 8 years, and it hasn't worked. So let me tell you what my plan is. We need to go bottom up, the way I did when I did this King Soopers Safeway town hall series. I plan to go to the people and to say, here's the challenges we have as a state. Here's some ideas about how to fix it. What do you think? Get people to understand what's at stake. Get people's buy-in, and maybe get some good ideas. Take the plan, put it on the ballot, campaign for it, and change Tabor once and for all.
Denver Central Committee voted unanimously to support a change to Tabor.
Listen, there's a chance some versions of what I'm talking about happen before I get to office. I'm going to focus on what I would do in office if it doesn't happen first. The bottom line is we are, as a state, in a fiscal straitjacket, and it is making it very hard to govern, to make critical investments for our future in transportation, in healthcare, and education in particular. And if we don't make these investments, we're eating our own seed corn.
Sarah's next with the microphone.
You talked earlier about a lawsuit relative to the mail-in voting and then also the space camp. The lawsuit is about which one or both?
It's a really good question. I want to be clear, I haven't filed it yet. I've promised to file it, and it's about both of them. And my point is, in a normal world, the president would say, we've done a whole analysis about what's better, Colorado or Alabama. And they would say, here is the basis for the decision, and let's just pretend it's Alabama, and here are all the factors, and here's why. That normal world is not our world. Because in our world, the president in the press conference said, I'll tell you why I'm moving it from Colorado to Alabama, because I don't like Colorado's system of mail-in voting. He's essentially trying to take away a constitutional right from Colorado, to pressure us or punish us or threaten us about how to exercise the constitutional right to the state of Colorado to decide the time, place, and manner of our elections. And our argument is, you can't do that. We'll see you in court.
But he can't do that, so.
So this is an important point. This is an important point. When I say he can't do that, I mean he can't do that under the law. Sadly, he has shown time and time again, they will violate the law, force me to go to court, have the court rule that what they did is illegal, and then they'll cave.
If they go to the Supreme Court, which will rule that it's legal.
Well, so this is going to be an instrument to watch. When our cases start to get to the Supreme Court, what's going to happen? We've won, and Colorado Sun has this scorecard you can watch. So for example, Colorado Sun has claimed that we're not winning the tariffs case, because even though we've won both at the District Court and the Court of Appeals, they've allowed there to be a stay while the case is pending. So they say we're not won that case. That case will go to the Supreme Court, the terrorist case. I'm one of 12 attorneys general challenging the president's terrorist decisions as illegal. Now he's done it, but I'm saying, and now 2 courts agree with me, with judges appointed from a number of different presidents, including President Trump, that he's violated the law. And my view is, he violated the law on his Space Command decision. He could have made the same decision for legal reasons, but he didn't. He made it for a blatantly illegal reason that violates the Constitution, is an offense to both separation of powers and to federalism, and that's why we're bringing the case.
What kind of bipartisan support do you have for repealing Tabor or modifying Tabor?
Your question is really important, that we need to find a way to build as big a coalition as possible, and that's why it's really important we do this the right way. That's from the bottom up, and how much buy-in can we get from independents and Republicans. And part of what I will promise you on this issue and on a range of issues as governor is I will be a governor for all of Colorado. And if you look at the type of campaign we have, the type of grassroots support we have, it's from all across Colorado because of my commitment to regularly showing up and making sure people know that they're heard.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about raising energy costs, especially related to data centers, and how in a lot of states we see that the brunt of that cost is being put on the general consumer, not the multi-billion or trillion-dollar corporations that are building it. As governor, do you have plans, or can you make any statements around that, I guess?
I'm looking at that issue and how to best address it, because I am aware of it. I'm not quite ready to say exactly what our plans are, but I'm developing some ideas about how to protect against the risk you just mentioned. Great question.
Can you say more about? Just a second, when we finish this side of the room, then we'll move over
Oh,
to the
okay.
microphone to
All right.
that side of the room.
That's fine.
It's kind of hard, I'm actually, sorry.
Okay.
While it's on this side of the room, my question is, how is Colorado doing in standing up to Texas when it comes to potential abortion-related matters as well as flock cameras?
I'll repeat the question.
Flock cameras.
Very separate questions. Flock cameras, which is a still developing issue that I'm still getting my arms around. Cameras that are tracking license plates and who has access to what information for what purposes. A real valid concern that at this point, I'm still trying to understand all the way it works, because some communities have said this is serving a good purpose for them. Others have looked at it and said, I'm not liking where this is going. So this is an issue that's kind of playing out at the local level in real time, and I'm still getting my arms around myself. Reproductive freedom in Colorado means the following. Whoever you are here in Colorado, your rights are protected to get reproductive health care, and abortion is health care. The fact that Texas happens to have a law that suggests that patients who come here can be subject to legal action in Texas, and they've even threatened at times that doctors in Colorado giving abortions to women from Texas can be subject to legal action, is an assault on the Constitution. The Constitution is known as creating a right to travel between states. You might think about this as what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You go from Utah to Las Vegas and you hire a prostitute. Utah has no basis to prosecute you for what you did in Las Vegas, even though it's illegal in Utah. If you go from Nebraska to Colorado and you buy marijuana, you go back to Nebraska, they can't prosecute you for having bought and used marijuana in Colorado. In the Dobbs case, one of the worst Supreme Court decisions of my lifetime, right up there with Citizens United, there's a concurrence by Brett Kavanaugh, which says the interstate right to travel will not be affected by this decision. So we will be protecting everyone who comes here with reproductive health care. We will be holding off Texas, and if we have to go all the way to the Supreme Court, so be it.
Attorney General Weiser. I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to make a quick comment, which was a statement of thanks and appreciation for your leadership in recognizing that that when there's a bully, the best way to stop them is to punch them in the face. And you didn't put it quite that way, but I did. And I want to thank you for your partnership, because as you know, Denver Public Schools has also sued the Trump administration twice. It's been the first district in the country to do so, and has done so on some of the same things that you are. And I know that your office has worked together with the legal office of Denver Public Schools to make that happen. Appreciate that.
Right when this second lawsuit happened, I made a statement, and I'll be with you as this case proceeds. The Trump administration's bullying and picking on the trans community is disgusting, appalling, and we cannot let them win. Because when you pick on a vulnerable community, immigrants, transgender Americans, it does not stop there. Hate against any of us needs to be treated as hate against all of us. And the point about a bully is right. When this administration senses weakness, that's when you're in trouble, Columbia University.
Yeah.
Just saying. You need to. And the school board, I give you and your fellow directors real props here. You've got to stand on the firm principles on which our nation is based. And you've got to fight for them. So thank you.
Hey there, I'm a father of 3 boys in Denver Public Schools, and I want to know what your plans are to stabilize funding and get us out of the lower tiers of teacher pay and funding of pupils.
Let me offer a few points here. First, I want to acknowledge a threat to public education right now that I am hearing more and more across the state, and it is sophisticated and secretive. These groups, you've heard maybe some of them, Moms for Liberty, what is how you can also be called?
No left turn.
I don't know. There's a number of these groups, and their goal is to privatize education and to create charter schools like the Hillsdale College-sponsored charter school in Grand Junction. Montrose, by the way, did not approve of such a school, and now they're trying to take over that school board. In Durango right now, there's such an effort going on. We are at a moment where defending public education as a ladder of equal opportunity is something we've got to fight for. I was at the Supreme Court last year in a case involving Oklahoma, and the Archdiocese in Oklahoma was trying to create a Catholic charter school. If that doesn't violate the Establishment Clause, I don't know what does. That's the state establishing a religious institution. Sounds to me like you're establishing religion, but here we are. Your question was about funding directly. And the most important answer is the work on our taxpayer bill of rights, so that we can invest in education in our kids' future. And by many measures, your concern is apt and probably understated, because kids have been dropping out and more distracted and doing worse at this moment, where we have more and more teacher turnover, and kids having fewer mentors who know them as people, because we're not keeping people long enough, we're not paying them enough, and they're more isolated, lonely, and disconnected. I know I went to a public high school, and I had a teacher who was my mentor and helped me get where I am. And that's what I want for all college kids.
Now it's on. A funding-related question. I'd like to hear some more about your thoughts about a progressive income tax in Colorado.
I mean, I think we should have one. So the question is, and this is where we're going to have to do this right. And your point in the back about getting buy-in, there's so many different ways we can change Tabor. And if we're not, in my mind, fully collaborative and smart about how we do it, we're going to get the same result we got the last 2 times. And so I don't have a prescriptive view exactly how we might have a progressive income tax or how we might change the hard cap. But I know we need to change it, and we need to change it in the smartest way we can. And I never start anything by thinking, generally, I've got all the answers. I start by thinking, boy, I see there's a problem here. What are some possible solutions? How do we work the problem together? And I believe that the more we can get buy-in, and the painful, sad thing about the moment we're in, we're about to get an advertisement for why we got to change Tabor. Year after year after year. Because as we see how terrible the budget is, and the consequences of education, I believe we're going to bring people along. And then the question that's going to be really important to answer thoughtfully and carefully is, okay, what's the exact way we do it? And my view is we come up with the best thing that we can come up with that we think is going to pass, and then we show the voters that we can be trusted. And that's something that, it's going to be hard. I mean, referendum C, when it passed, didn't pass by a lot. And the other 2 times hasn't passed at all. So people can say, I've got the magic solution for Tabor, and I'll be like, great, I'm really glad. Can you get it passed? And my view is getting passed and take a lot of hard work. And part of the thing that I've experienced, and I believe, is when you show up to listen to what people have to say, you need to really be listening. So when I go to people and say, I see these problems,
I've got these thoughts, how I'm gonna fix it. What do you think? It's gonna matter to me what they say. And then we're gonna have to figure out how we take all that back and get to a solution that we can get over the finish line.
Okay, we're gonna do 2 more questions.
Okay.
We're at 33 minutes.
Sorry.
It's all right, no, it's good. We had you for 30 minutes. So, I know that Governor Polis right now isn't the most popular person in the room, but one thing that I've really patiently done is hold local municipalities accountable on housing. And particularly around like making sure that those local governments are not building housing that people need, especially that young people need. They feel right within their needs and actually build housing. How will you as governor work, either continue that or work to ensure that the housing that young people like need to live in Colorado like gets built?
The leadership of Governor Polis on housing has been important, and there are a number of areas that you can use as an example. I'll give you one, and it has had an impact in Denver, which is the use of parking minimums, which as a rough analogy I say is like you go to a restaurant and you want to order your dinner and they say, oh, by the way, you're going to pay for your dessert too. And then you might say, but I don't eat dessert or I don't need a dessert. Like, well, you're paying for it. And that's what a parking minimum does, is it builds in parking whether or not it makes sense to the person or not. Here's a challenge that Governor Polis' style has come up against. By pushing in what is viewed as a preemptive and prescriptive way, a lot of local governments have been like, hell no, and now there's litigation between the local governments and the state and nothing is happening. I do believe the best way through on how we lead on housing is how do we bring people along and how do we create a culture of we're working the problem together. Let me give you an example. Right now, for the housing we need, I'm totally with you, attainable housing for young people. I used to, when I called it a starter home, like the first home you can afford to buy. Those aren't getting built right now. Part of the problem is the local permitting process. It takes as long and costs as much to build that starter home as it does to build the mega mansion. In Fort Collins, 20 years ago, it used to cost $25,000 to build a home. Your permitting fees all in. Now in Fort Collins, it's $150,000. We should be surprised people aren't building houses even $500,000 right now. But they're building 1.5 million. What about if we had 25,000 permitting fees all in if you built a home under 500,000? And then if you built your mega mansion, the permitting fees are higher. What about if you guaranteed a quick review of permits for homes that were going to be attainable housing? That's the type of leadership and collaboration that I will work to bring with local governments to make progress on this critical issue. Last question.
Yeah. I think you mentioned earlier the Dobbs decision being the second worst case you've seen in your lifetime to Citizens United.
It's hard to pick.
Okay. Well, let's go with what you said. And with Citizens United, are you seeing any solutions? I mean, one thing that Americans seem to agree on is that money in politics is corrupting our politics. Are you seeing any solutions that you could bring to the state level to counter Citizens United?
The premise of your question is really good, which is Citizens United has created untold harms to our democracy by having 3 foundations, all of which are complete bullshit. Number 1, that money is speech and should be fully protected. Number 2, that corporations are people and should have the same constitutional rights as people. And number 3, that we should assume all the money spent in politics is transparently reported. So there's no room for mischief. Do you remember the State of the Union where Obama criticized Citizens United and Alito was like, no? Obama was right.
Yes, people criticize him for that.
So one of the areas to your question is this issue of transparency and how do we get better at it? Because what happens is you get these shell companies that get money from other nonprofits, like zero nonprofit corporations, and then they spend money and it's like people for happiness. And you're like, who's that? And no one knows who the donors actually are. I don't know exactly how we do that, but that's probably among the more promising because until the Supreme Court reverses Citizens United, you're not going to get back to the pre-Citizens United world where corporations couldn't spend fear freely and
they didn't have the same First Amendment rights. Let me tell you another way to show that money can't buy elections. It's to get on board with this campaign. Because my campaign is going to be the grassroots people power campaign. There's already been reports of the money being put into the person who I'm running against. I don't mind saying Senator Michael Bennet. I think the best place for Michael Bennet would be to keep his 17 years of seniority and stay in the U.S. Senate. There's a bumper sticker out there. Phil Weiser for governor, Michael Bennet for Senate. And all of you can and should learn more. You should invite Michael Bennet to come here and ask him the same questions that others who asked me. And you should make informed decisions. And all of your friends should take this race seriously. What worries me about this moment is that people disengage and despair. These 2026 elections are fundamental to our future. Are we going to get the type of leaders we need to meet this moment with the range of challenges that we're facing? And I'm running because I believe I can provide that leadership with courage, conviction, and how we build thriving communities here in Colorado. And you'll see a lot of information from me. If you can follow me on social media, Phil for Colorado, please share it. If you're not on my email list and you're willing to sign up, you'll get our emails. And then, like I said at the beginning, if you're willing to buy the merch and represent, philforcolorado.com. Thank you all so much for your time.